Messi explains in Japan why he did not play in Sunday's soccer friendly at Hong Kong Stadium. The chief executive criticizes Tatler Asia for hurting Hong Kong's image on the world stage. And Britain's King Charles III diagnosed with cancer. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Argentine football legend Lionel Messi's no-show on the pitch in Sunday's friendly match between Inter Miami and Hong Kong 11 has sparked an international incident. Having arrived in Japan earlier, Messi said he failed to play in Sunday's game because he suffered from inflammation in the adductor. He said, "I hope we can return and play games in Hong Kong." Timothy Lee has our top story.
Messi.
Argentina's king of football and Inter Miami teammates arrived in Tokyo on Monday evening. The Argentines seemed to be in a good mood, smiling and waving at local media and fans. The American football club is set to play Vissel Kobe on Wednesday. Speaking at a press conference earlier today, the football icon addressed the condition of his muscle inflammation.
La verdad que tengo muy buenas sensaciones a comparación de días. No sé si podré o no, pero me siento muchísimo mejor y con mucha ganas de poder hacerlo.
When asked about his absence from the match in Hong Kong, Messi said he began feeling unwell in the thigh area while playing in Saudi Arabia earlier. He said his condition was not serious after going through an MRI scan, hence allowing him to engage in the public training session last Saturday.
Después fuimos a Hong Kong y tuvimos el entrenamiento a puerta abierta y salí por la cantidad de gente que había y porque aparte había un clínico con los nenes para hacer y quería estar presente y participar, pero la verdad que las molestias seguían estando y se me hacía muy difícil jugar.
The football superstar described his no-show on the pitch as unfortunate.
Lamentablemente, cosa de fútbol, en cualquier partido puede pasar que podemos tener una lesión. A mí me pasó, no pude estar en el partido de Hong Kong y es una lástima porque siempre quiero participar, quiero estar y más cuando se trata de otro tipo de partidos que viajamos tan lejos y que la gente está tan ilusionada por ver los partidos nuestros. Ojalá podamos volver y podamos volver a jugar otro partido en Hong Kong y pueda estar.
Messi emphasized he will decide on whether he will play in tomorrow's match after addressing his condition in today's training session. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The Consumer Council has received at least 245 complaints involving more than $1.6 million over Lionel Messi's no-show in Sunday's soccer friendly in the city. Chief Executive John Lee stressed his disappointment in the football superstar's failure to appear on the pitch, and he criticized event organizer Tatler Asia for hurting Hong Kong's image on the world stage. More from Timothy Lee.
The fallout from one of the greatest letdowns in Hong Kong's sporting history continues today. Argentine football legend Lionel Messi sat on the bench throughout the long-awaited match between Inter Miami and a Hong Kong select team, a move that devastated spectators and fans alike. Among the disappointed crowd, Chief Executive John Lee.
Regarding the Inter Miami FC game last Sunday, just like other members of the public, I express my deep disappointment for the absence of Messi. The experience will have an impact on our work. When the event is funded by public money, it is the duty of the government to supervise it to make sure the public money is well used. The Bureau will continue to urge the organizer to positively respond to public demand. These demands include disclosing the arrangements with Inter Miami FC and to respond to the requests of ticket holders.
Event organizer Talo Asia said it has withdrawn its application for the M-Mark event status as well as $16 million in government funds, but did not mention or respond to questions regarding a refund.
Both the Customs and Excise Department and the Consumer Council will actively follow up on these complaints in terms of the deal and the communication between the organizer and Inter Miami CF, as well as how the government's requests and demands were handled or not handled.
The CE stressed the event taught authorities a lesson to be more concise with its instructions and demands in future contracts. Lee added the government and the Major Sports Events Committee will review the current mechanism for granting the M-Mark status to large-scale events. The organizer of the match, Talo Asia, primarily organizes events surrounding luxury goods, lifestyle, and fashion. This, as Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Kevin Yeung stressed the government will be more strict in approving large-scale sports events in the future. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Buckingham Palace announced on Monday that Britain's King Charles III has been diagnosed with cancer and has begun treatment. Daniel Rao tells us more.
The palace didn't disclose what form of cancer King Charles III has been diagnosed with, but said it's not related to his recent treatment for a benign prostate condition. The palace outlined a separate issue of concern was noted during the monarch's treatment for an enlarged prostate last month when he spent 3 nights in a London hospital. It said diagnosis tests have identified a form of cancer and that His Majesty has today commenced a schedule of regular treatments and is being treated as an outpatient. The palace said the 75-year-old king will suspend public engagements but continue with state business following his cancer diagnosis and won't be handing over his constitutional roles as head of state. It said King Charles remains wholly positive about his treatment and looks forward to returning to full public duty as soon as possible. The palace added that the king has chosen to share his diagnosis to prevent speculation and in the hope it may assist public understanding for those affected by cancer. The king personally called both Prince William and Prince Harry, as well as his siblings, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward, to share news of his health. Harry, who quit royal duties in 2020, has spoken to his father about the diagnosis and will be travelling to the UK to see him in the coming days. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak wished the monarch a speedy recovery, stating he was shocked and saddened by the diagnosis and that he was in regular contact with the monarch. US President Joe Biden also sent his best wishes. Members of the public in London expressed their shock at the king's diagnosis while wishing him a speedy recovery.
Completely devastated. It's just like a dream. It's not real at all because we knew he came in at an old quote-unquote age, but he was still very active, he was strong, he was ready to do a lot, and he gave us a lot of hope when he stepped forward and became the king.
Yeah, it was a shock, definitely. I think nobody thought of it. It was hard to hear it, and I hope the best, actually. But I also heard that it wasn't that bad, fortunately. So we hope all the best, and we pray for him. That's all we can do now.
News of the king's diagnosis comes as his daughter-in-law, Kate, Princess of Wales, recovers from abdominal surgery that saw her hospitalised for about 2 weeks. Kate is still taking a break from royal duties as she recovers. Her husband, Prince William, who is heir to the throne, also took time off to help look after the couple's 3 children. Daniel Rao, TV News.
Hundreds of angry farmers took to the streets of Bulgaria's capital, Sofia, to complain about what they call the total failure of the government to meet mounting challenges in the agricultural sector. They called for the agriculture minister to step down. Like their colleagues elsewhere in Europe, Bulgarian farmers are frustrated with the domineering EU regulations. That's in addition to hardships stemming from a surge in fertilizer and energy costs because of Russia's war in Ukraine. They also face increasing imports of farm products that are flooding local markets and undercutting prices. European Union leaders have proposed measures to limit imports from Ukraine and offer more flexibility on rules for fallow land. However, these measures have yet to be approved by every member state's government and the European Commission. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said today it was an outrage that a Beijing court handed Australian writer Yang Hengjun a suspended death sentence on espionage charges. Albanese vowed that his government would continue its efforts to secure Yang's release. Albanese told reporters in Canberra that Australia has conveyed to China its dismay, despair, frustration, and outrage at the verdict. The China-born Yang wrote about Chinese and U.S. politics as a high-profile democracy blogger. He was accused of spying for a country China has not publicly identified. A suspended death sentence in China gives the accused a 2-year reprieve from being executed, after which it is converted to life imprisonment. Still ahead, Antony Blinken in the Middle East again trying to secure a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. The death toll from forest fires in Chile jumps to more than 120. And Guatemala may seek to develop formal trade ties with China. Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Cairo today to meet with Egyptian leaders. They will try to secure a ceasefire deal between Israel and Palestinian group Hamas. Blinken was earlier in Saudi Arabia to discuss the proposal, which would temporarily halt the fighting and secure the release of hostages captured by Hamas fighters when they raided Israel on October 7th, resulting in 1,200 deaths. More than 27,000 people have been killed in the 4 months since Israel began its offensive against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Nazvi Karim with more.
Antony Blinken on his way to Egypt after a quick stop in Saudi Arabia as part of his latest Middle East mission. The U.S. Secretary of State met Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The two discussed a possible truce deal to end the fighting in Gaza and potential normalization of ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel. The proposal given to Hamas by the US, Qatar and Egypt calls for a ceasefire of at least 40 days and the release of more than 100 hostages still being held in Gaza. Hamas has ruled out any release until Israel ends its offensive. For Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a halt to the fighting appeared to be the last thing on his mind. Visiting troops in central Israel, Netanyahu told the soldiers that they will not stop until absolute victory is achieved. Meanwhile, reports say fighting has returned to Gaza City after Israel withdrew most of its forces from the north of the Gaza Strip. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said the IDF is focusing on the southern city of Khan Yunis before moving farther south to Rafah near the border with Egypt. More than half of Gaza's population of 2.3 million are taking shelter in Rafah. At the United Nations, it was announced that former French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna would lead a group to review UNRWA, the body's relief agency for Palestine. UNRWA has come under scrutiny after Israel accused it of employing people who took part in the October 7th attacks. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has given an assessment of its weekend strikes on Iraq, Syria and Houthi-controlled Yemen, partly in retaliation for the deaths of 3 U.S. soldiers in Jordan.
Although we continue to evaluate, we currently assess that we had good effects and that the strikes destroyed or functionally damaged more than 80 targets at the 7 facilities. The number of casualties is still being assessed.
The Houthis vowed not to be deterred and are suspected to be behind an attack on a Barbados-flagged British-owned cargo ship off Yemen's coastal city of Hodeidah. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
The death toll from fierce forest fires in Chile has risen to more than 120, with hundreds more missing. The fires appeared to be easing by Monday after burning intensely since Friday on the eastern edge of the central city of Vina del Mar. Volunteers in the city helped remove debris left by the fires. 2 other towns in the region were also hard hit, with Chilean President Gabriel Boric saying at least 3,000 homes had been burned down. At least 370 people have been reported missing in Vina del Mar, which has a population of around 300,000. The fires ravaged several neighborhoods that had been precariously built on the mountains. Some people returned to where their houses used to stand, preferring to sleep nearby to prevent looting. Guatemala in Central America, one of a handful of Taiwan's remaining allies, may seek to develop formal trade ties with Beijing while maintaining its existing relations with Taipei. In an interview with Reuters news agency, Guatemala's Foreign Minister Carlos Ramirez Martinez said they will continue working with Taipei at the levels they have been doing, but they cannot ignore the weight and power China represents. President Bernardo Arévalo assumed office in mid-January, vowing to end corruption and establish relations with China. Guatemala hopes for an Office of Trade Interests in China that would find a Chinese market for the country's products. Today is the 24th day of the national security trial of former media tycoon Jimmy Lai. Former associate publisher of Apple Daily, Chan Pui-man, said that Lai had shown a clear opposition to the extradition bill in 2019. Chan made her statement in court as part of her direct examination. Mimo Singhai has details.
A heavy police presence could be seen outside the West Kowloon Law Courts as Jimmy Lai was taken to the trial by a prison fan this morning. The prosecution continued the direct examination of Chan Pui-man, the former associate publisher of Apple Daily. The prosecution first showed some WhatsApp messages between Lai and Chan in April 2019. In one audio message, Lai asked Chan about a political banner designed by political cartoonist Zheng Zi. Lai wanted Apple Daily to print the banner and distribute it on an anti-extradition bill protest day on April 28th. Lai also asked Chan to seek opinion from former pro-democracy lawmaker Lee Cheuk-yang about the matter. Lai wanted Lee to distribute the banners. Chan said Apple Daily used to only print posters for July 1st demonstrations, which took place annually. She added it was an exception for the newspaper to print such posters for an April demonstration. Chan said she and other colleagues thought Lai attached great importance to the 428 protest because he wanted to find ways to increase the number of people who took part. The prosecution asked Chan why the anti-extradition bill became a focus coverage topic of Apple Daily between April and May 2019. Chan said the topic attracted discussions across society when the government proposed passing the legislation. Moreover, Chan said Lai had expressed clear opposition to the extradition legislation. The heading of a news article in May 2019 was Lai Qiying, Hong Kong will be over after the legislation. The article focused on what Lai said in a speech at the Foreign Correspondents Club in Central, including some of Lai's quotes. Lai described the Chinese legal system as rubbish and said the bill was much worse than Article 23. In June, the government decided to suspend the extradition bill. Chan received a message from Lai saying actions need to be upgraded. Chan said Lai thought the government's suspension was a delaying strategy and the ultimate target was to withdraw it.
During the trial, judges Alex Lee and Esther To questioned the prosecution on the translation of certain words. Lee said the translated words should be consistent throughout the proceedings to avoid confusion. Mimo Singhai, TVB News.
Hong Kong bank depositors will soon enjoy protection for up to $800,000. The Deposit Protection Board today suggested increasing the protection limit of deposits to $800,000 within this year. The proposal means a 60% increase from the existing cap of $500,000. During the consultation, 17 banks suggested raising the protection limit to $1 million. The board said a review will be conducted in 2027. In the U.S. city of New Orleans, a group of artists are giving a push to revive the classical music scene, but they're giving it a twist, this time promoting black singers and opera from a black composer. More from NBC News.
Before becoming the birthplace of jazz, New Orleans in the late 1700s was a city of opera.
Would regular people just be out in the streets singing too?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They knew all of the operatic arias.
And free people of color found success as classical musicians, a history that Giovanna Joseph says has been largely erased.
Why don't we know about these black composers and black singers?
Jim Crow laws.
And a lot of the musicians that had found work here, they started losing those jobs.
Now, Giovanna and her daughter Aria Mason are working to restore that heritage through opera creole, finding the lost works of local composers of color and giving them a long overdue American debut, including Edmond Dédé's Morgiane, believed to be the first full opera composed by a Black American.
We can see actually the artistic process taking place.
The conductor helping bring the 550-page handwritten opera to life is Patrick Dupree Quigley.
This piece of music is the most important piece of American music that no one has ever heard.
Morgiane will premiere in New Orleans, New York, and D.C. For Giovanna and Aria, a chance to expand the canon of great opera works.
Restorative justice is our goal.
Priscilla Thompson, NBC News, New Orleans.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.